I'm going to adjust a setting on the Menti side because it says the presentation is not active anymore, and figure out whatever is going on with that. I'm sure we'll be able to correct it.
Yeah, let me know if I need to do something on my side.
I can see it, Tracy. I joined.
Oh, you didn't get an error with it?
No.
Oh, good, cool. Then there's no issue. Great.
Let me try really quick.
Yep, it's working now. Maybe just a little hiccup.
And the recording has started too. So Andres and Aaron, whenever you're ready, take it away.
Perfect. Thank you everyone for joining us. Welcome to what I think will be a very interesting community meeting on all of the different licensing options from UiPath. We have with us Aaron Collier. He is a senior sales engineer for UiPath. I met Aaron actually through a sales call for my bank one time, and I was so impressed with his general knowledge of the products that I asked him to very kindly help us with this presentation, prepare it for us, and present, just because kind of wanted everyone to hear what he taught me that one day. And I kind of did it out of order, and then I'm Andres. I'm an RPA engineer here at Bank United. And then we have the rest of the South Florida community chapter, Tracy, who's the leader and has been instrumental in setting up this meeting, and Courtney, who has as well been. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And I think we'll hand it off to Aaron to get started. Oh, just one thing, there will be interactive questions during the meeting. And Tracy, from my understanding, there might be a prize for the person who answers most accurately and fastest.
Correct. There'll be a quiz, so make sure that you're paying attention to Aaron's content. There will be a prize. There will be a Centric Consulting donated Yeti cup for those that are within the U.S., and we'll send a gift certificate over if the winner is someone outside of the U.S.
Awesome. I'll go ahead and take over, and Andres, the rest of the team, thank you all very much for having me today. Like Andres said, my name is Aaron Collier. I'm a senior pre-sales engineer here at UiPath. I support a slew of different customers in our commercial strategic segment, so these are established customers. But I'm always happy to, I'm sure we'll probably provide contact information afterwards, always happy to field any questions or otherwise if I can help. I wanted to kind of start actually just with a quick question, a couple quick questions. Like we mentioned, there's a few poll questions going on, so feel free to interact, post questions in the chat, and also interact with these polls as they come up. Let us know if there's any problems out there. We'll give another 5 or 10 seconds for this one. But what best describes your role in licensing decision-making authority? And some answers roll in. Give another 5 seconds or so. Cool. And following that, or if there's any upfront questions that you have on UiPath licensing options, we'd love to capture that, and then we will try to address those either along the way. Hopefully, I'll answer a lot of these as we're kind of presenting along, but give you another 10, 15 seconds here to post your questions. I believe you can also, this won't be the only time you can ask questions. You can also post any questions in the chat as we're going along. It's going to be a bit longer form. I'll give another 5 or 10 seconds here just in case. Perfect. Assisted task mining available for all cloud enterprise customers with any license choice. Great question. I'm hoping to address, I'll tease that now. Long story short, assisted task mining, for those of y'all not aware, one of the task mining options. We released that, I believe it was last year when that was first made GA. It is technically behind what we call the standard platform licensing. That's the licensing required. I'll get into what that means here in just a moment. New licensing models, there is no basic PLA. I'm going to go through all the different options essentially. License minimum, another great question. Significant changes to the licensing model in the near future. I can say selfishly, I hope not. We will we'll kind of get on. That's actually what I wanted to address first is some of the complexity. Where did all this complexity come from? I've been here with UiPath for 2 years, and I've seen a drastic reduction or simplification rather in the complexity, and that's an intentional effort. So I'm going to try to address that as well. License best suited for POC and UiPath document understanding, or our IDP solution. Great questions. I'm going to go ahead and move forward. Feel free, like we said, put these in the chat. We'll also capture them and try to respond to them as we go along. Last one, is it possible to buy direct from UiPath or need to be through Ingram Micro or another reseller? So it is, I will say it is possible to purchase directly, but I would also highly recommend, in general, we recommend our partners for a slew of different reasons. They provide amazing value add when it comes to professional services, both strategic and hands-on implementation services as well. There's oftentimes they have even better discounting capabilities than we can do as well. So we can facilitate both, but it's really ultimately up to you and what the longer term strategy is. Okay, so we'll see. Got a couple of maybe Tracy, should we show? I guess we've already shown the voting results. Move forward.
Yep.
Okay, got it. Gotcha. Okay, so we've captured those. Okay, so like I said, we kind of want to capture or address where the complexity came from. There's really two reasons I would say that the UiPath licensing model became kind of complex in the past few years. I mentioned I've joined about 2 years ago. That was, I would say, maybe at the peak of complexity. The first was that, 2019 UiPath was three main things. It was Studio, the developer tool. It was Robots, the execution arm, and it was Orchestrator, the central management console. This slide, I think, shows it pretty well. We've really expanded from a services, products, and capabilities standpoint in the past few years. And a lot of that complexity, or a lot of that increase in feature set capabilities required additional licensing. That said, and I'll say it this way, right? There's three main things at this point that the platform enables customers to do. First is discover, as we're saying here, discover opportunities, both for optimization, process optimization, in other words, as well as standardization. And then ultimately, because we're an automation first company, we want to help you automate those ideas. So we want to help you both capture those ideas, do so in a data-driven way, and then lead you towards automation. Automation would be the second thing here, our core pillar, right? Still doing low-code, no-code type development, taking advantage of both UI and API-based automation. And then there's some additional capabilities that we've unlocked, more complex use cases with things like our specialized AI, generative AI out in the marketplace, et cetera. And then also keeping the idea of process orchestration, keeping humans in the loop where relevant. The third pillar has to do with operating an automation program like this at scale, especially. And that partially leads me into the second area of where this licensing complexity came from, not only because there was such a slew of different capabilities, but also because we introduced this cloud-first optionality. And I really do mean optionality, but that speaks to, there were what we call legacy or NPS licensing that was solely for on-premises self-hosted customers. We introduced this idea of cloud licensing for our cloud customers as well. And then ultimately we introduced what we call flex licensing. Now, flex licensing, as far as I can tell, this is kind of speaking to one of the questions that was asked earlier, is the model for today and the model that we're going for in the near-term future especially. I don't foresee any changes here. And what we really mean by flex licensing, it allows you the choice as the customer to deploy wherever we have made available these services. Now, our recommendation, no, that's not what today's call is about. Our recommendation is to take advantage of Automation Cloud wherever you're able to take advantage of it. But the single idea from a licensing standpoint is that the flex licensing allows you the option for this. So you can take advantage of Automation Cloud. If you want to self-host, we have two options. We have Automation Suite, which is basically We take Automation Cloud, package it up in a Kubernetes Linux-based distribution, allow you to self-host either in your own four walls or within a public cloud of some of your own as well. And then, of course, we still do support and have the individual products with the Windows-based installers, primarily Orchestrator, especially. But I will say, I think in the future, if I were a guessing man, the individual Windows-based installers will be going the way of the dodo, so to speak. So that's, again, two main reasons. It became complex at one point. The introduction of cloud and the introduction of all those new capabilities, we had to license them some way. That said, once we reached that peak, we've really taken an effort to simplify, and that's what I'm here to talk about. One of those areas of simplification, especially, is in the introduction of what we call AI units. AI units are, if you were here with us a few years ago, we had this idea of AI robots and then AI or DU document understanding pages. You can kind of forget all of that. We've moved everything possible, especially anything that is AI driven, AI related. We've pulled that into our AI units, which is a consumable license type that I'll speak to a little bit more here later. But you'll notice that AI units are the licensing mechanism for multiple products, multiple services. Anything from AI Center and document understanding to a couple of our Discover products as well. Not only communications mining, which was our acquisition of Reinfer a few years ago, also task mining. Someone asked about assisted task mining. That's under the subcategory here. Coincidentally, assisted task mining does not consume AI units. It's actually just a part of the platform itself. So I'll address that here in a moment. But we also recently introduced, this is in the past few weeks, process mining had its own licensing mechanism. That was a little bit complex and cumbersome. We have now pulled process mining in to recognize consumption via AI units as well. So in other words, we've taken multiple different kind of disparate licensing types, simplified it with AI units, and we essentially, when you own AI units, you open up the gamut of different AI capabilities across the platform. I'm going to back up. Actually, let me share this. That's a little bit of an eye chart. Let me share it from this view real quick. So I'm going to start real quick with our free and community plans, what they consist of. And before I actually go through the list here, I really want to highlight, if I can find my mouse, I'm going to pull over our licensing page just as a quick reference here, because there's a couple of different pages that I can point you to. The licensing page especially will go through not only the SKU itself, in other words, what the license is, but it includes the different software entitlements that are included within that SKU. That's especially relevant for user tiers. But then it will also provide some additional description for that. So I really like to point this licensing page out. It's a little bit to first get into, but once you understand kind of how it's arranged, it's a really easy way to look at that licensing, understand what is my licensing, what entitlements does it include, etc. Okay, so starting with the free and community plans, the first thing is kind of a point of comparison here. They're both free to use. It's really a kind of a EULA consideration in who should take advantage of which plan, who's able to take advantage of which plan. Another similarity, neither of these plans have any formal support. It's community or forum only. So you're not able to put in support tickets and have a defined SLA for those support tickets. Here's the biggest difference between the two. The free plan, which I think we created last year, is available for commercial use. So any customer can use this. You'll notice here in a moment that it's pretty restricted in what licensing is actually provided for it. The community plan, as it has been for a long time, is really much more open. It's used for educational purposes, for personal enablement purposes, especially if you are enabling yourself to potentially take on an intelligent automation role at a company. Again, educational purposes, especially certification purposes, and there's much more licensing entitlement available. So let's talk about what that entitlement includes for the free
Aaron.
plan. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Can I stop you real quick? It's Courtney. We're still seeing the AI unit slide. Are we?
Interesting.
I think there was another slide, right?
Yes, there was. Give me 1 second.
That's what I thought.
Thanks for calling that out. May have.
Yep, and just
I think that's
if
what I
it's
did.
not responding, you can just refresh, Aaron, and that will probably get it going.
There you go.
Sure, there we go. I think I shared a window rather than a screen. There we go. Cool, thank you again. Okay, so sorry, again, free versus community. The main difference is that free is available for commercial use, community is for non-commercial use. From a licensing entitlement standpoint, users are not actually necessarily licensed within free. It's as needed. In other words, you can add as many users to Automation Cloud as you need to. The licensing entitlement is for what we call Automation Express, which in short is a restricted version of Studio X. What I mean by restricted is that it is restricted to that user's personal workspace only. In other words, they're not able to really share automations with other people. Studio X, right, is really our no-code developer tool, so it's not going to allow you to develop very complex automations. But it really gives you the ability, especially from a commercial standpoint, to enable a few of your teams to get working on automation, potentially building out the building blocks of a program before you actually look at purchasing some kind of licensing. From a non-commercial standpoint, community offers quite a bit more functionality. It is limited from a user standpoint, but you get much more of our enterprise licensing kind of included as part of it, again, for non-commercial use. Attended robots, you get a couple of automation developers, in other words, the full-blown version of Studio itself, both no-code and low-code. More advanced automations. You get both a tester user as well as the test manager product and service itself. And you also get, very powerfully, an unattended robot, one for what we would call production use and one as a test robot that can actually effectively do more. No, that's not today's purpose, but unattended test robots can do everything that a production robot could do and also execute on what we call test cases. It also includes some additional entitlements. I'll be honest, I'm not completely sure what kind of capabilities are available for document understanding, especially because the community plan does not include AI units. I believe probably what is available there is an API key so that you can hit our public endpoints and things of that nature to try those types of services out. For today's purpose, Andres, great question. We'll address that here in just a moment. So for today's purpose, I think primarily the paid licensing, there's two main types here. There's what we call Pro and Enterprise. Both of these are available for commercial use. There is no real restriction for what kind of company can use either type here. The main differences are that Pro is going to be paid via the website directly to UiPath. There's no need for a long-term commitment here. You can do this monthly, and then there are slight discounts for an annual commitment. Enterprise licensing, as many of y'all are probably aware, paid either directly through or directly to UiPath and or through a partner distributor of some kind as well, done via PO in most cases. And the commit is minimally a year. In most cases, they're multi-year contracts as well. There's additional discounts, of course, for that. And much more customizable, which is really what I'm getting to with this right here. Pro does not really require, and it doesn't provide any dedicated sales resources like myself or an account executive. Some of y'all may prefer that touch. You may just have some very specific use cases. We allow you to purchase via the website and take advantage of that. Enterprise, though, I will say, having a dedicated sales account team comes with some real benefits that I'm going to hopefully highlight here. So one, again, Pro licensing provides an MSRP pricing, very limited discounts from an annual basis if you decide to sign on there. And MSRP is really the starting point for enterprise licensing. Of course, there are all types of different discount and levers that we can pull, whether you're purchasing in volume, doing multi-year contracts. There are various bundles or packs that we've curated for certain efforts. And then, of course, depending on any individual customer's needs, we can customize a bill of materials and bake in discounts there as well. Pro is a pretty rigid subscription contract. Like I mentioned, not really much customization. I'll get to the actual entitlements here in a moment. Enterprise, though, we can be very flexible with how they're created, what licensors are included, and there's also various purchasing mechanisms, including through the ability to essentially use UiPath licensing in an MSP type model. There are also different considerations when it comes to legal concerns, contractual modifications that can be made. Again, Pro is going to have some licensing restrictions. What I really mean by that is Pro is really almost what we would call legacy or kind of core UiPath RPA, right? We're primarily, it's not going to be our AI capabilities. If you're wanting to take advantage of those, we would consider you more of an enterprise customer, more complex use cases, and we essentially want to assist you in validating what you're going to be purchasing at that point, rather than just potentially allowing you to get yourself into trouble, so to speak, and overbuying or not buying what you really need in order to accomplish your goals. And that's really the main goal of your account team, is to ensure that we're validating use cases with you, we're validating what licenses need to be purchased in order for you to accomplish what you're looking to do. And there are no restrictions from an enterprise standpoint. You can also increase, of course, your contract whenever it makes sense. That can be prorated as part of your contract, or you can initiate a new contract completely. My thinking is most customers who will go with Pro is that there's some initial interest in automation. There may be some very specific use cases you're trying to tackle, but there's not necessarily any demand or desire to scale at this point. It's a great way to start, and if scale comes later on, you can then move to enterprise. That's really where we help to support what we would call enterprise scale and adoption. From a trial standpoint, I think this is speaks back to one of the questions that was asked earlier. We only have one trial option with Pro. It's called the Pro trial. There's some very specific, I'll point you to one of the website. I think we have it in the presentation as well, that you can look at the licenses that are available during that trial. If you want to engage with your account team, we can often customize those evaluations, potentially add licenses on where it's relevant for what you're trying to accomplish during that trial. And we can also sometimes either UiPath directly can assist with those evaluations, and there's a spectrum, right? Anything from more of a custom demo through to a kind of a pilot leading to a production scenario. Anywhere in there is possible. We can do that. We can facilitate that directly with UiPath, and/or in most cases, we can help you to facilitate that, bring in a partner that would be really relevant to help land that type of evaluation for you. And that's kind of the last thing here, right? Pro, kind of speaking to how it was before, there is support, but most advisement comes from external experts, not UiPath directly. Whereas with enterprise licensing, we can provide kind of a really tailored experience from an advisement standpoint. The other main call out I would make is that within Pro, you can only create up to 3 tenants. Most cases that's enough, dev, test, prod, for example, but they are all within a single region. So especially for customers that have multi-region demands, global companies, things of that nature, they do require enterprise in order to create those tenants within different regions. Oh yeah, and support, of course, like I mentioned, support for Pro, standard only. Enterprise is much more customizable. We also can take advantage of some of our enhanced support services that would include things like designated TAMs, technical account managers, post-sales, to help ensure that the strategy is being delivered on, that you're taking advantage of the majority of the platform. This is all a bunch of information. I'm going to switch back over to Mentimeter real quick and kind of click through here, because I think we had one more, a couple of questions. All right, so we got a few people ready to play. Again, these are timed, so faster you answer. What are AI units in UiPath used for? Got 15 seconds here. Usage-based pricing model for all UiPath AI products. Limited only to document understanding. For compute capacity in classic AI Center or DU deployments, or only for process mining? Perfect. Got a couple of perfect answers. AI units are usage-based pricing for all UiPath AI products. Again, effort towards simplification. One license type, AI units, unlocks a lot of different AI capabilities across the platform. All right, second question. I guess Shami answered a little bit faster. Good job, Shami.
I think the questions are just sprinkled in
Yeah,
around the
they are.
presentation.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Sorry about that. Yep. Thanks for that clarification. Okay, so let me switch back over to my PowerPoint here and build this out. So if I can simplify how we license, especially at an enterprise level, there's really four main considerations. The first is foundationally what we would refer to as the platform. There's two options for platform, a standard platform or the advanced platform, and I'll give some detail here in a moment. Standard platform is really a great starting point for really any enterprise organization that wants to build an automation program, right? You're not just looking to automate a few processes. You really want to establish a program and build that out over time. Advanced give you some, of course, more advanced capabilities there, but I'll get to that in a moment. Once you provide that foundation, you scale on top of that with three main components. Users, user-based licensing, depending on which services you're interacting with, right? Things like Studio, for example, or something like process mining. You want to scale with robots as well, right? They're the execution arm. We still maintain that. And there's a few different types of robots you can take advantage of. And then third, we have various types of consumption units, AI units being the main or the primary type of consumption unit. There are a few other services that take advantage of other types of consumption units, and I'll highlight that here in a moment. So foundation, scale, and then the third thing is, of course, support and services that underline all of this. You can get the support directly from UiPath. Services can be either provided via UiPath or partners, or a combination. I've seen a lot of success with customers taking advantage of really hands-on implementation and long-term strategy with a partner that is supplemented by, for example, a UiPath solution architect to kind of project manage and ensure success. Like I mentioned, all of this is available in that flex licensing type, meaning it allows you choice of deployment. If you want to take advantage fully of SaaS, our SaaS platform, if you want to go fully self-hosted, and or if you want to do a hybrid, which I would say is probably our most recognized at this point. Most customers will use Automation Cloud for the products and services available there. They'll still deploy their robots on premises, and of course, Studio would be deployed or installed on the developer computer. I want to do a quick time check on myself because I noticed it's 11:32. Andres or Tracy, want to be conscious of the time here. How much we got?
We're doing great. We have about half an hour left.
Okay, perfect. I didn't know if so. Well, okay, gotcha. I didn't know if there was another presentation after this.
No.
Cool. So I'll go into a little bit more detail about especially the platform licensing here. So again, that's where we start. As y'all have, especially any customers that have been renewing the past year, you've probably run into the idea of platform. I want to make sure you're aware of what that includes. The standard platform, number one, is $30K. Orchestrator, by the way, is no longer a line item. It's no longer a SKU. It's simply included with your unattended robots, to be completely transparent. But the feature set for Orchestrator is going to be determined on the platform that you choose. So standard platform gives you standard features, and I've got a slide probably available as a follow-up, just so you're more aware of that. The ones in black here are kind of baked into the platform. In other words, you're going to get these regardless of what you go with from a licensing standpoint. But it will include Orchestrator integration services. In one part is licensed via your user and robot licenses, what we call API calls. But in most cases, integration services you can think of as baked in. Data services, similar. Computer vision, of course. You get a much higher megapixel per second rate. And then Automation Express, same type of license I mentioned earlier for Automation Express. You just get a whole lot more included. And it's really as intended to provide people that raise your hand at your organization and say, hey, I'm interested in that automation thing. You can give them some Automation Express licenses completely for free and kind of govern their growth with automation. The ones in dark red here are the ones I really want to call out as these were individual products and services that we have essentially packaged up as part of the platform because we identified them as being really key to ensuring that your platform can scale effectively. Automation Hub and Task Capture allow you to, of course, within that Discover pillar, identify and capture ideas from across the organization. let people raise their hand and say, hey, I'd like to automate this process, and it allows you to prioritize those based on key data that you're capturing within them. Insights is taking orchestrator logs, robot logs, and allowing you to visualize that in dashboards for two main reasons. Both what are your robots doing operationally, and two, how is that actually providing value to the business? In other words, business ROI and metrics like that. Visualize that. It's essentially a BI tool for your automation program. And then third, test manager. I didn't call this out earlier, but we see testing as a best practice for any software development. Test manager allows you a really easy way to facilitate testing of not only your automations, but also any functional application testing that you're doing. In other words, QA leads, software development teams, etc., are taking advantage of this. We often call that test suite, but test manager itself is the product or services included within the platform to help facilitate that. Someone asked a question about assisted task mining. I mentioned earlier the standard platform is technically the licensing mechanism required for assisted task mining, so it does require that in order to take advantage of it. I'll take my UiPath hat off just for a moment, or just be a little bit more transparent. Oftentimes, some of these features, while they require a license entitlement, when they're first made available, some of those entitlements are not toggled on, and so you might be able to use some things even though you're not technically licensed, but of course UiPath would hold the ability to turn the toggle off at some point once that licensing mechanism was made live, so to speak. That's the standard platform. There's a substantial jump in pricing to the advanced, and but it's also a substantial inclusion of some specific capabilities. I'll highlight again, Orchestrator gets some advanced features as well. Again, I've got a slide that highlights that as well. Insights move from a simple 2-year retention to providing up to 5 years of log data retention as well. And it also allows for what we call real-time export. In other words, you can essentially link up to an external BI tool that you may be using and do those exports in real time rather than manually. So there's some additional functionality there. The main thing that the advanced platform allows for, really bakes in, is 300,000 AI units. Those can be purchased separately or individually, right, with this idea of scale. You buy the foundation, you can scale on top with consumption units like AI units, but we bake those into the advanced platform itself, which unlocks all of those different AI-driven products. We also, depending on which deployment model you are wanting to take advantage of, we have some advanced security and availability constructs built into this platform as well. If you are familiar in the past with the high availability add-on, that was available as a standalone option that was I think $30K by itself. So if you are self-hosting, you want to ensure high availability, that add-on is baked into the advanced platform. Same for cross data center HA as well, which is primarily for automation suite. And then for our cloud customers, we allow for disconnected credential proxy, and we also allow you to take advantage of what we call the delayed release ring. Of course, we maintain all updates within Automation Cloud. Every Automation Cloud customer gets what we call a canary tenant, or the option for a canary tenant, which receives updates 3 days in advance. If you want something more than that, the delayed release ring actually spins up a separate Automation Cloud instance for you entirely that receives updates, I believe, 14 days in advance. That way you can see how those updates are affecting any of the products or services you're using, and then your primary or your production Automation Cloud would receive those updates at least 2 weeks behind that as well. So just some additional enterprise-grade security and availability there. I'm going to check real quick the chat just to see what questions have come in, and we'll see if there are. Yeah, go ahead.
We just had one there that was specifically related to that. So it's about the AI units being, is that one time? Is that annual?
Great question.
Do you have to use them all in a year?
Yeah, great question, PU. So that is those 300K AI units are included at every renewal. So if you are doing a 1-year contract, that's 300 AI units as part of that platform every 1 year. If you're doing a actually, I'm sorry, I'm switching that up. I believe those 300 AI units renew every year regardless. So even if you're doing a multi-year, those will renew on a 3-year basis. I have to double check on that because it's baked into the platform itself. And what I typically tell customers is if we're sizing AI units, we would want to add on top of that. So I'm going to go back and take that as a follow-up, and I will double check and see if that, regardless of your contract, if it's a 1-year contract or multi-year, if it's just a single grant or if it renews every year. You stumped me. I apologize. I don't have that answer right now. But good question. I'll take that as a note, and we'll get you a follow-up on it, PU. And then Andres, you were asking what products do you get with standard platform that would be unavailable in the Buy It Yourself Pro? Great question as well. So I know for sure that Insights, Test Manager, and I believe even Automation Hub are not available with Pro. I believe all of the rest of those are. I think Automation Express, there's only 25 included rather than 100. And I would have to double check on assisted task mining. That actually brings up, though, there was one other page I mentioned. So this was the licensing page I mentioned. One other one within the docs itself for Automation Cloud, within the admin guide, it's our About Licensing page. This actually gives a very comprehensive matrix of what is included in each licensing type: community, free, pro trial, the trial itself, pro, and then enterprise. I believe if we look here, yeah, 25 Automation Express are included with the pro or the pro trial, whereas 100 are included with enterprise. If I'm looking at, so assisted task mining is actually included in pro as well. And then I was looking specifically for Automation Hub. There we go. So it is included in the pro trial, and there is a service trial available within pro. However, if you want to actually purchase Automation Hub, that would be within enterprise itself. So you can do a trial while you're a pro customer, but in order to take advantage of Automation Hub, that would be enterprise. I believe that's the same with Insights. And then Test Management is not actually available even as a service trial for pro. It is included as part of the pro trial. And again, if you're looking at any one of these three, Test Manager, Automation Hub, or Insights, those would be really for customers that are looking at enterprise licensing. So good question there as well. Thank you for posting that in the chat, Andres. Let me make sure I didn't miss one other. Andres had a question earlier. How do you create a commercial tenant on the free model? So I believe that let's actually look back at that page. The free model, for the second column here, there is only a single tenant available. So when you create your Automation Cloud, a free Automation Cloud account, that is going to be your primary tenant already. It doesn't allow for multiple tenants. And the call out here is that free and community, they are both, you want to be aware, those tenants are only provisioned out of the EU. So you're not able to choose your region there. Okay, so again, pulling back from the specifics of the platforms, this is again kind of your first, especially within enterprise licensing, you're going to choose which platform you go with. Then you're going to scale on top of that with, like I mentioned, users, robots, and consumption units. Users, and I've kind of placed this in order of lowest price to highest price. Automation developer would be the primary user type, of course, that would unlock Studio. Citizen developers are going to be your Studio X. Notice that attended robots are actually licensed as a user. Makes sense. It's installed on a user computer, and they are a named user license. In other words, it is a one-to-one relationship, your attended robot to a user. Then we have, like I mentioned earlier, some licenses that are specific to services within Automation Cloud. Tester users are going to be given access to Test Manager, but they're not necessarily developing automations for tests. They're simply interacting with those tests, reporting back on the tests that have been run, etc. process mining, we have a single process mining user type, whereas we used to have two. These are business users, and kind of on that, the other process mining license type we used to have was a developer user. That functionality is now included with Automation Developer itself. So we've actually, that was a higher priced SKU. We've actually gotten rid of that SKU completely. That functionality is found within Automation Developer. Business users are simply interacting with the dashboards, customizing dashboards within process mining. And then Action Center users, or action users is what we typically refer to them as, are interacting only with Action Center. So these are mostly business type users. You'll notice as well, back on that initial licensing page I showed, that especially things like Automation Developer will have the entitlements of all of the lower users as well. From a robot standpoint, two main types of robots that you'll be choosing from, and these are self-hosted robots, both unattended. One is a production, we just call it an unattended robot. One is a test robot. Test robots, again, have all the functionality of a production robot. It's primarily a EULA restriction, but there is also additional functionality because they can execute on what we call test cases. And then finally, this consumption license, again, the primary one I mentioned, these AI units, that unlocks a lot of the AI-based capabilities across the platform. We also have, for customers that want to take advantage of Automation Cloud for robots themselves, we have what are called robot units. So this is both a license type and allows for the consumption of infrastructure on the back end as well. We simplify a lot of that. You buy robot unit in bundles, and they cover you for a number of different types of robots, whether they are a VM-based robot, in other words, a Windows-based robot that would be used similar to an unattended robot that we host rather than you have to host. We also have what are called serverless robots that execute on a minute-by-minute basis, great for web and API-based automations. Robot units cover you regardless of what you want to deploy from that standpoint. Have a couple of other consumption units. Again, app units are going to be relevant for our UiPath apps, especially if you want to, those are now public facing as well, not just internal facing. In other words, you can create a web-based application, and these app units are going to allow your external customers to be able to access that. And every time they access it, especially, it would just consume app units on the back end. Integration service, like I mentioned, we have what are called API calls. In most cases, 90+% of cases, the integration service API calls that you'll need are facilitated through your user licenses and robot licenses. They each have entitlements as well. However, we do have some customers that take advantage of integration service at scale, very high volume. They're triggering a lot of different automations. In that case, they do require some additional API calls to be added on. And then one of the newest licensing types is called transport units. This is very specific to within Test Manager. If you're an SAP customer, we have a heat map for SAP specifically, and we also introduced what's called change impact analysis. Transport units are relevant for that kind of sub-module within Test Manager. So that is a pretty niche licensing unit, but that's, again, pick your foundational platform, add on top the users that need to interact with the platform in a relevant way, choose which and how many robots need to be executing your automations, and then if there are necessities for AI capabilities and or you want us to host your robots, those would be the two primary use cases for consumption units especially. I'll pause again. I think there's a couple of different questions. Difference between UiPath Flex unattended test and dev license. So I'd be curious what you mean by dev license, although my assumption here, and P, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong here, but so Flex unattended robot is going to be an unattended, it's going to be a robot, an execution license, in other words, right? You would spin up a machine for your robot, typically a Windows server. You would license it with an unattended robot. That unattended robot then has 24/7 usage within your production scenario. A developer license is a user license. In other words, you would install, in most cases, you would be installing primarily Studio on a user's, typically a developer's license, or a developer's machine rather. That developer license does include a robot license, so that you can do debugging type efforts, but it is still the developer itself is attached to that robot. It's not intended for and can't really be used for unattended use, in other words, like an unattended license can be. How are app unit calculations done? Yeah, great question. So apps can be licensed in two main ways. Your user licenses, anything from automation developer down to, I believe, the attended. So these three licenses here, attended, SitDev, and automation developer, those give that specific user full access to apps. They can interact with any app, UiPath app that you build in an unlimited capacity. App units are used for any users that don't have these user licenses, and so it's especially relevant for external customers if you point that application externally. And so what app units do, every time that app is accessed, whether it's from an internal person that's unlicensed or an external person that's unlicensed, it will, I believe it consumes at half an app unit every time the app is spun up. It may be one full app unit. I think we changed that recently. But that's how app units are licensed. That's a great question. Conversation is best had with your account team. They can help ensure that you've got enough app units so that you're not overbuying app units for your use case. Does Automation Express not provide access to Assistant? What is the value prop for the attended license beyond Automation Express? Great question. Okay, so Automation Express, again, is a included license. It's a free license. It's going to be a restricted version of Studio X, meaning it does actually include Assistant. It's got your personal robot, so you can build your automations in Studio X. You can execute them with your attended robot, and you can even publish them to Orchestrator specifically within your personal workspace. What you can do additionally with an actual citizen developer license, for example, is not only develop those automations for yourself, but you can actually then publish to other folders. You can share those automations with other people across your organization as well. So that's the primary difference. Automation Express is really intended to, I have some personal automations I want to build. I kind of want to get my feet wet with automation. That's a great license for me to do it. Someone that is going to be more of a citizen developer, developing not only for themselves, but maybe their team, maybe trying to build into more of a full automation developer at some point, that's really the license required for that. Great question. Again, quick time check. I know we have about 8 minutes left. I think there's, again, one other quick note I wanted to make. The third thing, right, foundation scale, and then third, support and services. We have different options here. Primarily two support tiers, Activate Success and Enterprise Success. The main call out I would make, Enterprise Success includes what I called out earlier, a designated TAM or Technical Account Manager, post-sales to help with strategy. They are not really hands-on. They're not going to develop automations, in other words, that they will help direct you, provide documentation, provide guidance, etc. It also includes what's called an Automation Program Advisor, another individual who helps to plug in with business units, ensure that the automation program is being adopted, and provides additional kind of from a different approach strategy conversations. We do, of course, like I mentioned, have pro services. We have our partner network that are certified to deliver services as well in different ways. And then, of course, everyone's probably familiar with the UiPath Academy, free training, free enablement available to anyone that's can just give us an email address, basically. See a couple of other questions popped in. One of my customers asked us for separate Action Center license because it is not the developer who wants to trigger the process for manual intervention. Yeah, so great question. We do have, like I called out here, we do have Action Center licenses for any individual who simply needs to be able to get into Action Center and action upon, document understanding validation, for example. You can also, you're probably aware, you can customize forms for a user to be able to interact with. That Action Center license is exactly what that's for. So use case would be document understanding, we'll say invoice processing, for example. The developers, of course, are creating the automation. You're using AI units as pages are being processed, and then your Action Center licenses would go to business users who are very familiar with those invoices and can validate anything that a robot has done that doesn't meet a certain confidence threshold, or where there is a business justification to bring a user in and make them part of the loop, the human loop element. Should we take separate license? Oh, should we take, that was just a continuation. Should we take separate license in this case? Yes. Yeah, the answer would be yes. So you would want your business users to have Action Center licenses. Automation developers, an entitlement for them is Action Center, so they can also get in. But ultimately, if your business users are different than those developers and need to be able to validate within Action Center, you'd want to license those individually. Okay, I think I'm going to switch back over to Minimeter because I think there might be one or two other questions here. Yeah, got a couple more. Again, fastest answer gets more points. Which of the following is included in the free community plan for UiPath? Dedicated sales account team, formal technical support and service, integration service, unlimited attended robots. All right, perfect. Integration service is included in the community plan. Again, kind of licensed via the user licenses there. Let's see, Homer came in clutch, nice. Great job. I think we may have one more question. So again, I'll probably, just for sake of time, leave these as follow-on slides for your review. This just overviews the difference between standard and advanced platform. Main callouts again, standard features versus advanced features, as well as a couple of the security features that are available within each one. And then this is actually, as of 23.10, which is the last major release, we have our next 24. I think it's actually going to be called 24.10 as well. That's coming out in the next week or two, actually. But this slide highlights especially the orchestrator differences between standard and advanced, as well as test manager and insights, a couple of the differences in those as well. Again, I'll leave these as follow-on items. And then PU, again, I'm going to capture your question and make sure we get a response back to you, because I'm either forgetting or misremembering what the deal is with the included AI units as part of the advanced platform, how they renew. And we've got a few more minutes. Give Andres or any of the rest of the team any time to close this out. I'm happy, again, if there are other questions afterwards, happy to leave my contact information. You can reach out directly, and I'll be happy to fish that up for you.
Nope. Thank you so much, Aaron. This was absolutely awesome and informative. And as you can tell, I had quite a few questions, and I might follow up with you at some other point on some more questions that I can come up with.
Absolutely, yeah. I was just there was a third question I forgot about. If we want to,
we want to get to the last one so we know who this the winner.
Yeah, apologies about that. Okay. Should be able to interact directly with the screen if you're in Mentimeter.
Okay.
Perfect. So what is the main benefit of UiPath's Flex licensing model? It is the flexibility of deployment, allowing you with a single license type to deploy on-premises, in our automation cloud, and or a hybrid of the two. So we'll see the leaderboard here. Looks like Shami's coming out on top.
Looks
Great
like
job
it.
to all three of you, though.
So I'm going to put my email address in chat. If you'll please send me your information and whether you're within the United States or outside of the U.S., then we'll figure out getting you your prize.
Great. And we do have the contact information or LinkedIn information for everyone on the community team. I will also provide my LinkedIn information so you can reach out to me directly if need be. And Andres, I'll pass back to you.
Again, fantastic presentation. Thank you so much, Aaron. That had so much information in it, and I think at least I need to sit through and review the presentation, which will be sent out to everyone after the call with the recording as well. And then from there, yeah, we'll get the LinkedIn URL for you as well, and we'll make sure that gets sent out to everyone so they can connect with you too. And I guess we're right at time. Thank you again so much, Aaron. That was great, and thank you so much everyone for joining. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thanks,
Stephanie.
Aaron.
Thank you, everyone.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Thank
so
y'all.
much.
Thanks.